Thank you for being here. Today is Wednesday, July 18th, and we're meeting for the Blue Ribbon Committee for People with Disabilities. And I'd like to start. We have a quorum, so thank God. Okay. Last month, I think the mayor was here, but unfortunately, we didn't have a meeting, but we spoke quite a bit with him. And so we went through a number of items and issues, but we have some today, and so I would like to call the meeting to order. And the second item here is the review and approval of the minutes for May 23rd.
Actually, they're from March. And I think those were swept up last go around. Yeah, because I only have one. And I'm not sure, I had to backtrack because I was so confused as
We didn't have minutes for last meeting.
But then for May, I think you weren't hearing me. It was Dr. Gonzalez.
For May, I was at the manager's teleconference, so I don't know who took those.
It was,
Dr. Gonzalez.
yes, he took those.
For May, and then last month, no quorum. April, we had the eye medical training like that in the Florida region. So March are the last ones I have.
Okay. Well, we have them. I'm sure we'll find them.
I mean, I have them, but I don't have them printed. Because we had them the last time. I thought they were gonna come in.
Regardless, we still thank you for your efficiency. And
Just been promoted.
We've taken on a task that nobody wanted. Well, so,
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna go telling myself that. Very efficient. Very efficient.
You might be 3 months behind, but okay.
Hey, nobody's perfect, right?
So yes, the last minutes that we have are for March 28th. And so if Eric is passing those out, if you all want to take a look at those, and if there are any changes, deletions, or revisions that we need to make, please bring those up.
Mr. Chair, I also have the material that building brought over for last meeting. I don't know if anybody wants a copy, but it has it here of their presentation and then the ordinance.
Okay,
That was
thank you so much for
dismissed.
doing
Sure.
that. Martha, can I have a copy of the phone?
Yes,
I have 20 copies.
but just in case. Thank you. Is it a packet? This is one
I have a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah, motion to
Approve the minutes. Mhm.
Okay, it's been approved as presented, thank you. Third item is public comments. I was the only one signed up for comments. Right? The fourth item is discussion and possible action on bylaws and city charter adherence. I asked Erica if she could reproduce those, and those are the ones that you have here, okay? These are the ones that there was some degree of discussion. There was some degree of discussion. These are the ones that I indicate that as of a certain date, and I'm looking for the date that all committee meetings would need to be recorded, videotaped. And so, needless to say, that's the reason for a camera in the room.
Oh, no wonder. I was like, is America?
So,
You're being videotaped.
Wait, no?
Yes.
So you need to behave to that.
No jokes, no jokes.
And so I don't know if you all have had an opportunity to go through this, and there were some members that had raised some concerns regarding this. The new requirements having to do with meeting frequency. I'll give you a rundown, like section 2-153, having meeting frequency. This committee shall meet at least once a month unless otherwise authorized by the city manager or stipulated by law or council action. My understanding is that we typically have consistently met monthly, or at least we've tried. And so that's not necessarily an issue. Location of meeting, there have been some concerns about the committee meeting shall take place at the Laredo City Hall. Some members had raised the concern that we were comfortable here in this location and it was more accessible and easier to get to and get out of. Mm-hmm. And so my understanding is that it has been decided that we could remain here, continue the meeting here at the health department as opposed to needing to go downtown. And I think the one that raised some concerns was the one with automatic forfeiture. And if you read that, it says committee members shall automatically forfeit their appointment position for failure to attend 3 meetings in 1 calendar year, irrespective of whether said absences are excused or unexcused, consecutive or non-consecutive. Staff liaison shall immediately notify the appointing council member following the forfeiture to allow for the appointment of another individual to fill the removed member's expired term of office. Nothing herein prohibits the city council from removing a committee member at any time for any reason, including inefficiency, neglect of duty, or misconduct in office prior to the end of the appointment member's term. There was some concerns about that because some members, due to their responsibilities of work or personal issues, sometimes find it quite difficult to
Schedule.
to be here at every monthly meeting. And so there have been concerns about how some members might even feel compelled to just abandon or relinquish their position already. And I pretty much interjected that that's not what they were asking for, that's something that we could still work through and see how we could try our best to make sure that you all continue on the committee. For most of you have been here for quite a number of years, and so we'd like to continue with the present quorum that we do have right now. By the way, Dr. Gonzalez just walked in, so thank you for joining our meeting, Dr. Gonzalez. We missed you.
I missed you too.
Buenos días, doctor.
Buenos días, buenos días.
And so I don't know if there's any of you who would have anything that you all want to discuss regarding this? I know privately some people raise concerns. I don't think that we can pretty much do very much about it. I don't think we're gonna be able to challenge the city council's position on this.
Was there any change? I think the last time was, there was gonna be a follow-up meeting because since we were assigned, we were appointed by the mayor.
By the mayor as
and
opposed
not-
to
Was there a
council.
change in that or an update?
Mr. Chair and members, good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
Yes, we got clarification, the Blue Ribbon Committee also has to adhere. But I'm gonna have another follow-up discussion, because even though you need to adhere, I think this committee has been, as the chair just said, very committed throughout the years. Something you all do need to address is, because you're only appointed by the mayor, the commission members in the commissions, for example, or the advisory are appointed by each council member, and so there's a term. Council member leaves, he has to appoint, the new one appoints someone else. Aquí it's only the mayor, and this started with Mayor Salinas, and Mayor Sines accepted the group again, so there's people who've been here in Misado from the very beginning. And so you may want to address your own internal, the mayor's okay with the committee, loves the committee, very respects the committee for the work that it's done, but as far as membership, that will be up to you. At this point, you all are eternal.
We're what?
Eternal.
Oh.
But you all may want to address that internally with your bylaws, and I know the chair and Dr. Ruther have approached me also about doing internal bylaws here. We will get you the general provisions, maybe this is if Eric passed you out.
Yeah, I think yeah.
Location of need, this is the new stuff that says that they need to be recorded, we're being recorded since the last one we're live. Second, that there is the retention portion that does adhere to this committee, and you have 3 absences, then you need to be removed. That we also adhere to the minutes, which we do, and then meeting once a month that we do. And then also the tenure, the Blue Ribbon does not have the tenure issue, like I said, from the commission, so that will be something you all to decide. Do we serve 4 years and choose someone else? And you would petition the mayor, since this Blue Ribbon Committee is appointed by the mayor, not by council. It's approved by council at the end, but he's the one who appoints the members. And everyone here has been sworn in, so you're officially a member.
So the issue regarding tenure, is that something that we initiate or the mayor would initiate if we?
Either or,
We don't need
at this point, he asked me to share with you, he wanted your recommendation. Should members rotate 4 years, 5 years? He's looking to you, he wants your recommendation.
I personally think that it's always good to have a variety of mindsets, because we are a growing community, and while I want to say that I am the best for the position that I serve, I know that there are many young minds out there that you want to grow a committee, and you don't want to be perpetual. I mean, at least I don't want to, because I want to give another person an opportunity to be able to voice and to be part and to grow professionally and as part of a community member and give back to a group. So I think, personally, I think it would be a good idea to consider the possibility of setting a term. To what extent, I don't know. I mean, it's would have to be a group of people that come together, but that's would be my thing.
The only issue with that is that the mayor is the one that appoints the people.
Right.
So he would have to know people that know about disability issues.
Because there's what you do in the community.
Mr. Chair, I mean, good points for both, and that's why the mayor is saying he's looking to you to give the recommendations.
Because
You're absolutely right.
A lot of mayors do not know specifically about, disability issues, and I mean, that's my thing.
Including this mayor, and he has told council several times, I've been advised with the Blue Ribbon Committee for people with disabilities, so you all have educated him. I didn't mean to do a little more to the rest of the council, but you have him, and you have him, you got a listening ear, and Mr. Delgado has also played a big role in that. But that's why he's saying, and I think he's very sincere, he wants your recommendations. If you decide that there's terms, then who do you recommend to come in? The other thing, Mr. Chair, is that the members who have been, yourselves, can always continue to serve as an advisor.
Yeah.
Always. And this committee can go back to you for different things if you decide on terms. And so, again, you would all, the committee could do that we would keep, you would finish your term if you decide that it's 4 years, that your 5th year you would be out, but you could continue to come as an advisor.
And I think the only reason why I say that, I mean, I like the idea that we can continue doing the same things, but in order for people to grow, there's got to be new opportunities for others to be part of it, because otherwise we take control of something and we don't, we become a committee that doesn't, isn't open to others. And I personally think that the best times that I've gone is when there's been some change in the groups that we've served. You know, that's just my personal, I love what I do, okay? I'm very passionate about what I do. But I also know that I'm not as young as I used to be, and I have a lot of commitments, and I have a lot of things I want to continue serving. But I know that there's minds that have other thoughts that could contribute to this beautiful committee.
So let me, just to clarify, Dr. Gonzalez, so as an advocate, you could still come to the meeting, but you wouldn't be like voting or doing those formalized things that the members do.
Yes, but that's up to you all. Right now, you're perpetual.
Mm-hmm.
If you decide to put a term,
Then
you could decide that then the rest of the members can continue to serve as advisors, and the difference would be you wouldn't have a vote, because then the mayor does officially appoint you. Who's ever appointed by the mayor, sworn in, that's the voting person.
Correct. So is there a sit-out period, like say once you do the tenure, say you sit out to give other people an opportunity, can you come back in at a later date? Or once you tenure, you're an indefinite
You're gonna
non-member?
be chosen by the mayor, so.
No,
it's
I
gonna
know
be
that, but
different.
I'm saying as far as the tenure process, so if we, let's say we said 4 years, we hit our 4 years, and then of course we recommend somebody else to come in, which would be appointed by the mayor, or approved at least, and then we could come back at maybe several years later, or once you serve your 4 years, you're done.
Good, all of those are good questions.
What I
and
do wanna
comments.
say is, Bess used to be the one that was, all over, doing about disability issues, and for a long time, we had been after city council to do a committee, and they were always kind of pushing us to the side. I know because we tried with Ms. Flores, she didn't want it. Luckily, Mr. Salinas, he did approve of it. And that's why we have this, the committee. So, it's always been like ours, per se. So, I mean.
I think there's valid points on both sides, okay? And I understand the infusion of a new brain, new ideas is always good, youth is always good, okay? But I also think that, historically speaking, from a perspective of commitment, okay? There's a reason why some of you have been here as long as some of us have been here. We've been here 5-6 years, but I don't know how long it's been, okay? And never in that time has it occurred to me to say I'm gonna relinquish my position. I feel as though some of us feel like a moral obligation, responsibility, because this is what we do, this is what we've done all our life, and we'll probably die doing it. Okay? Because that's what we're compelled to do. Okay? And so I feel very strongly about that too. Do I want to give up what I've got? No. Okay, I'm being selfish and whatever you want to call me, and self-centered and whatever. But can somebody else do a better job? Probably yes. Okay. But in the meantime, you need to knock me out, okay?
I guess I'm all about,
And I understand that, okay? But we've been working together for many years. Okay, we know where our strengths, where our weaknesses are. We know what our specialties are.
Yeah.
Okay, and we know who can we rely upon to be more passionate when we need to be. Okay, and so I know that some of you may not be here all the time. Okay, but I know that when we ask you for something, you're always there, and your voice is very strong. And so I think, just like you're indicating, Dr. Gonzalez, it's something that needs to be identified and reviewed and evaluated what we want to do. You know, I think just like any other term, you can rotate it every 5 years or 4 years or whatever that it would be. And so, yeah, that's something to consider, but I think that's something that the committee needs to review both perspectives about.
and I think it's a good idea. I think for me, it's more about, I want to be able to duplicate myself somewhere along the line because I'm not perpetual. I would love to be, but the only thing that's perpetual is the stone that sits there on the top of my desk, you know? Apart from that, I'm not, and I keep thinking, okay, so what if I disappear tomorrow? What have I contributed to helping someone? Where have I mentored someone so that they can continue the work that I am so passionate about? That's where I'm coming from. But I don't want to leave either. But at the same time, I'm thinking, what can I do to mentor someone to take care of it? If next week you guys have a meeting, or next month you have a meeting, who will sit where I sit that is as passionate as I am? Where do I locate that person so that this committee will thrive 100 years from now?
There will be other advocates.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of mothers that have kids with disabilities, and I'm sure they're the ones that are committed, because of their situations. So I mean, I don't think that would be a problem.
Mr. Chair, that's up to the committee. Right now, there's nothing, so you all can
Yep.
continue.
Yep.
And certainly we would go to council, whatever you decide to add to the Blue Ribbon's responsibility, because the other ones are tenured depending, and council member goes out, the new one appoints someone new. You all, both mayors have accepted the committee to go, and Mayor Sainz didn't want to change anyone. He added new persons, and so that's something for you to decide. The other thing on the attendance, as long as people are here, we have to have a public meeting. As long as people are here, you can tie in voting members by phone as well. That's been clarified, so we can, or teleconference, but we must have a public meeting, so someone has to be here, and preferably the chair, the vice chair, the secretary.
Well, my understanding
It has to be
regarding,
here
No.
physically?
No, the quorum can include the phone persons, but you have to have
At least a
a
person?
public.
Or
Well,
who?
yeah,
I would call more than
persons,
one.
but yeah, and preferably an officer. So the
Okay.
secretary,
I
the
don't know
vice
if
chair,
that's
the chair.
changed, Doctor, but I know that in
Okay.
previous boards that I served, okay, we had to have a quorum physically there, and there could be an additional person calling in. But that may have changed, okay, because electronically or the way we administer meetings nowadays is very different than it was years ago, where everything's done from coastline to coastline, okay, and different things, and so, yeah, the probably needs are.
We asked that, and there were two versions, so we'll ask again, but I sit on the state mandated Governor's Task Force on Border Health, and we just went through that question. And so as long as we have a face-to-face members open to the public, because it's always public comment, then others can tie in by phone. And we asked about the quorum, and this was the state attorney for the Department of Health said, yes, it meets the criteria. Well, we asked our local attorney, so I'm gonna get additional for this, for the committees here. If we have to have a quorum physically, or can the quorum be part of the phone? But meeting combined is allowed, is okay, but you must have some face-to-face members. Let me get final clarification that the face-to-face has to be a quorum.
You may be right. things may have changed over the last several years.
But we did get conflicting from the state attorney and the local attorney, so let me get,
I would go with it.
how are we going to, how are the commissions run? And especially this came up with the streaming, where we're gonna go live, because we wanna make sure that there is a public meeting and that there is official business going on with the quorum. Does the quorum mean the face-to-face and the phone, or what? So we'll get final clarification, but the question had been asked before, can we join in by phone? Yes, but you must have members face-to-face.
Do you have the technology to like Skype people now?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
we could Skype you, and then we're being live streamed, so.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be
But
on
we do have the
screen.
capacity to Skype, we do have the capacity to Skype.
That's good.
Yeah, that opens the doors more.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can always use the old-fashioned telephone too,
Yeah, that's, that'll work too.
just the
Yeah.
voice would work.
Yeah, you can.
So if any of you have any other issues that you think that need to be brought up for discussion or drafting, I would appreciate if you would send those over to me so that we can put them in, include them in an agenda, so we can, outside of this meeting, okay, we would have to meet and make those and just have a discussion and hopefully come to some kind of agreement where that we could present it to the group at large.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, one other item on again, following the current, Ms. Rebecca Morales, the LISD, had talked to me, she wants to continue, but there's been an issue with her participation. And I shared that with her. But I told her that the chair would talk to her eventually, because this, in the minutes, it is recorded that you all said you need someone from LISD, so we were gonna ask Ms. Morales to recommend someone. But I think the chair's gonna have to talk to her to see if we can come to an agreement, because she, like everyone, this is her passion. So she did say she wanted to continue, and I told her, well, the chair's gonna have to talk, it's probably gonna talk to you, because there is an issue of attendance.
But maybe with that that we can Skype, we can, with the
Teleconference,
call-in,
yeah.
maybe that does open the doors to.
I didn't, you're right, I didn't discuss that. I'll leave it up to the chair to discuss with her. But the committee did voice in the minutes that we need someone from LISD to participate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll discuss it later.
So I have a concern. Well, a couple comments. I think the tenure idea is a good one. I do, because I think that what that would do is it would keep those that had a passion for this work at the table. We would still be at the table. We would just not be voting, but we would be serving in the capacity of an advocate. Is that what you said? So I think that would strengthen the BRC, because then two things would happen. One is what Ceci said about having people, because after a while, I think when you have the same group meeting over long periods of time, you exhaust the ideas you have. Because we only have so many ideas, right? I mean, we're great, but we only have so many ideas. And I think in turning over those core members, but still having the advocates on at the table is going to strengthen the BRC in number, if you will, because there's no
Knowledge.
limit to advocates, I would think. And it would allow those fresh ideas with newcomers and new members that may have different experiences or whatnot. I think the key to me, is the attendance. Because it's one thing to say you have a passion and you enjoy this and it's all great and wonderful. It's another thing to be here and to make that commitment in action. And I know we all have been absent, myself included, but I think that if we do have the freedom of that teleconference, then we really need to hold our own feet to the fire in terms of the attendance, because that's where it's at. One of the things that I find frustrating taking the minutes is that when you have a lot of people absent on a regular basis, it's almost like you're spinning your wheels. I look at the minutes, I literally looked at 2 months with several months in between, and they looked almost exactly alike. That's concerning to me because that's saying that there's nothing, there's ideas, but they're not moving. And I think that the attendance has a lot to do with that, because what we're doing is the next meeting we have, we're giving a whole rundown because the people weren't here. Then the meeting's over, and then what have we really covered that's different from the last meeting? So I think tenure is good, and I think we could stay at the table as advocates. And I think just really, I know we've been talking about the attendance for a long time, but I think we really need to adhere to that because it's critical to the movement and progress of the BRC. So.
I think there's
I
growth in
I
numbers.
don't want everybody to give up their seat like
No,
next week.
not.
Right?
No, it's gonna take, it's just like the cat, so I'm gonna hold on and just reach.
And I
until
think in
somebody-
terms of new members, I agree, whoever said that I think the current member, I think should be the one to recommend
Recommend.
someone
And
to
mentor,
replace
you know?
them. Because you're not gonna recommend someone that you don't think is committed, that you don't think is gonna do what you did. If I recommended someone, I want someone with more passion than I have.
Yeah.
That's more committed than I am, that's willing to do more than I've done. I don't want someone with the same or less commitment. So I think you're right that the mayor's not gonna know who those people are, but we know because we're in this field.
Right.
So
It
we
would be us.
can have faith that those new members are gonna be just as committed, if not more committed than we are. And that's what we want.
It's a growth process, and
That's
it
what
helps,
we want.
and it helps and moves us forward because I just came back from a meeting and I saw close to 50 people sitting at a table, and it was amazing to see all these minds and all these ideas. And I want what San Antonio has and what Austin has. I want it here, but I don't want it with just a few. I want to be able to fill up a room with bright minds, advisories, people who are passionate, who can connect it to other people who I'm not connected with, because I've been in a bowl like a fish for 30 years of my life, came out of a bowl 4 years ago, and I'm like a Yorkie without a leash. I'm going like, wow, there's so much. But I know that out there sits someone who's got more than I can give, and that I can sit there and learn from them, and they can learn from me. So it's whatever, I think it's great.
Okay, we'll evaluate that. We'll bring that up. So if you get a call or
Your time's up.
it's time to talk.
Mr. Chair, members, if you like, so we can take action, we can develop a survey to begin the discussion and decide how the committee wants to go. We'll run it through you, the chair, and pass it out to the members and discuss it the next meeting. Right now, you're not mandated to take an action, it's just because of the bylaws. If you want to, you have that flexibility to take action, develop a bylaw that would create a time limit. That's up to you.
Do those bylaws need to be approved by the mayor or the council?
Yeah, eventually, yes, we will take it because they will become part of your official governing body. Yeah, eventually, whatever comes out of here would have to go to council, like the next item, and to prepare to amend the code of ordinances for accessible parking. Yeah, we gotta take it to council.
Okay, so you all have just learned that you're not like Supreme Court justices, you don't have a
Your days are numbered.
commitment to this committee. Okay. Any other discussion regarding that, besides us probably having to meet outside of this typical forum in order for us to have a more formal discussion about what kind of items we want to.
So question, so that means that we cannot meet anywhere else except here?
Oh, no, we can meet anywhere.
Okay, so we can actually go out and.
As long as, we can meet as long as we don't have a quorum.
Okay,
Okay, so there can be up to 4 people who meet, okay, so that we can get together and then bring those items to the rest of the group. But the moment that we have 5 people, it becomes a meeting, and we should have announced it and should have
we just won't invite you
publicized
then.
it. And so it becomes a
Anyways, you
prior
can't even
public
get the
announcement.
minutes.
No, the reason why I'm saying that is because I still like I'm still dabbling with the idea of visiting different entities. It'd be great, if I was an H2B, and I use H2B as an example, if I was with H2B, and I had a committee from the mayors, appointed by the committee, coming over and saying, we're ambassadors from the mayor's office. We just want to thank you very much for, partnering with the city and, everything, and hiring people. Would I be more inclined to hire? Yeah, because, I'm being recognized, Sometimes you have to do that. From where I come from, I'm just a little person, but when someone with authority comes in and commends these people and encourages them, and that's one of the things that we're wanting to do, to encourage people to have accessibility of employment and socially and in every aspect for those people. And we hold a lot of power, we really do, because we're an appointed entity that has a voice. So when I say that, I'm thinking, well, maybe once in a while we could do that.
Mr. Chair, first of all, you're right. If you have 5, then it's a quorum of the public, but you can meet less than 5 anywhere and discuss certain issues. But meeting somewhere else, that's allowed. We just need to coordinate it with Pat to record the meeting and to publish it. So as long as we publish it, and I think that's been something nice that this committee has done, meeting at the Terrace Center, meeting at Joseph's Store. I think that has been good. It's your decision, we just have to publish it.
Okay.
And then we can have special meetings too. They're called special meetings where we're having a meeting to discuss an item that's urgent and it's a special. Because you're regularly scheduled on the 3rd Wednesday of each month. You can have other meetings and they would be called special. And if you want to have it somewhere else, we just need to announce it. But you can. The facilities that have officially been provided for you is here or City Hall. Those are given that you can meet there. But again, you could meet somewhere else, we just have to publish it. City Council, for example, has had special meetings at different recreation centers for retreats. It's a formal meeting because it's a quorum, they have to publish it. But it's been away from council chambers. And the same thing here, we just have to announce it.
Yeah, consideration. You have it at your house. You can.
Yes, definitely, most definitely. I have a courtyard and I have a swimming pool too.
Okay. So we'll probably send something out to all the committee members once we make a decision on a date and location. And then as long as, I need at least 4 volunteers, I guess, or 3 volunteers. Yes, 3 volunteers. But I'll send that out to you all. And then the next item that we have is discuss next steps for amending the code of ordinance to increase accessible parking. We had a discussion with Mr. Linares. He has been here twice to present the requirements of the various parking locations and types of businesses and the theory behind the number of parking spaces and how they equate to them and how they equate to the number of parking spaces available. And so needless to say that this group has from the get-go felt compelled to increase that number. Some of those formulas that they have represented have not been changed in 25 or 30 years from what I understand. It doesn't say that the larger your location and the more spaces you have, the more accessibility parking spaces are required. But even at minimal, you can have, I think, up to 25 parking spaces, and all you need to comply with, I think, is one accessible parking. This committee has been concerned with the idea that people who have accessibility parking permits are very mobile, unlike maybe 30 years ago. And there's a large volume of individuals who have placards that allow them to use those parking spaces. And last count we had the city issuing out more than 4,000 placards per year. And those placards are good for 4 years, so that means there's 16 active and current placards. That excludes anything that may come from Mexico as well, any cars that may be coming from Mexico as well. And so there are a number of locations that the committee feels that they should increase the volume or the number of parking spaces. And so that's something that we would need to sit down and look at. We have the material that he provided us with, and that's something that we would need to go back and look and evaluate and see where we could make some changes. Some of you may not have been here for both of his presentations, but we're going to have, he doesn't feel that some of your larger volume locations that have 50, 100 parking spaces will resist or won't be as difficult to add another 1 or 2 spaces. For those organizations or those businesses where you only have like 10 parking spaces or 15 parking spaces, that's all there is available to them. Increasing an additional accessible parking space might be quite challenging for them to accept because the volume of people who show up at their store don't need that accessible parking space. And so this committee is responsible, or we are given the challenge of finding a balance between the business world and the business requirements and what they feel won't deteriorate the flow and the business to their location, and also considering that there are a number of accessibility parking spaces that may be in greater need now because of the mobility of the people that have access to the placards, and that today's populations are work, and they're out, and there's more so integrate into our community. So one of the things that we have to do is go back and look at that. That's not something that we can do here in a meeting because that would take quite a long time. But it's something, again, just like the city ordinance issues, we could probably try to engage those 2 items at the same time, both the parking as well as the ordinance at the same time.
Could we consider the possibility of looking at, for example, I'm located at 2329 East Saunders. There is I think a kidney clinic and the chiropractor, and there's a lot of medical. There's also a day hab. So that particular section has a lot of medical needs. So could we, and I don't know anything about ordinances or anything like that, but I'm thinking for those areas that have the more the possibility of getting more of an influx of individuals with disabilities, could that be something that they would have to do, and where there's maybe an option, and it wouldn't be as enforceable because the need would not be as high? I mean, I don't know. Like the mall, I mean, it is a public area, but the place where I'm at, I can tell you that there's ambulances and there's people with the speech therapy clinics and people with, so you're talking about, I'd say 80% of the people on that section where I'm at have a disability. So it would be ludicrous to say no. That would have to be a matter. But in another place, it might not be.
I think those are mitigating factors that have to be taken into consideration, because I know that there are some organizations or some locations that, because of the nature of what they serve and what they provide, they attract individuals that have a higher number of accessibility needs, okay? And so I think those are factors that we need to look at. But again, the problem becomes, what's the determining factor? How does it become an objective as opposed to subjective decision as to who and when you qualify or are required to provide additional accessibility parking spaces because of the nature of your business? Some of them are obvious, but some of them may challenge and say, I'm not going to agree with that. And so how do you make that determination,
I think
okay? Other than, it may be obvious to you and I, but not to them, okay?
I think if you look at the ADA compliancy manual, it says that if you service your business, the nature of your business is one that services people with disabilities, then the compliancy is a must. There's no ifs and buts. If you don't, there's always room, wiggle room that you have. But if you look at the manual, I just went over it just recently, and it gives you that. You just have to review it. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but it gives you clear guidelines. It says if you are a business that services people with disabilities, then you don't have a choice. I'm changing handles on my doors because I don't have a choice.
I'm almost sure about what I'm about to say, okay? But if you go through the material that was provided to us by the city, you will not find any exceptions to parking lots because of the nature of the people they serve. You know, they are required to have a minimum amount of accessibility parking spaces because of the size of the square footage of their building and the number of parking spaces, but it's not based, until right now, there's no criteria that I recall, okay, that's based on, well, you're a rehab center. That serve people who have physical disabilities, so consequently, you need to have 50% of your parking spaces like this. There's no such requirement, okay? And so that could be a challenge, okay? I'm just saying.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I think what we could do is we could tackle this issue from both formal and informal kind of angles, if you will. I think following what Mr. Linares recommended probably is the best, is that's a more formalized process. And he basically said 26 plus lots, it's gonna be easier to get them to agree. So I think we should go that route. But then we should tackle looking into the ADA more carefully, kind of like we did with the mall, where we just went in person and said, hey guys, you know, we're with the BRC, we're a mayor's committee, we just noticed you guys serve individuals with disabilities, would y'all be willing to do X, Y, Z, and do a more informal approach?
And it's usually more personal.
Because it's gonna be really hard to use the ADA as a foundation for a formalized building approach, because those laws are all already in place. And so doesn't mean we can't approach business by business, just personally, because being local to Laredo, you know where individuals with disabilities go. So kind of tackle it from both ends.
That's why you don't want new minds, because they make you work a lot.
Okay, but excellent.
If you do business to business, that guarantees you a lifetime membership.
Perpetual.
Mr. Chair, you gave an excellent summary. Mr. Linares asked me to again offer, you can come again and go through it in more detail. But you gave an excellent summary. The only thing to point out is to look at the last page of his handout where it is saying the parkings, and the chairman is correct what he's saying. Really, his advice is up to 200 spaces. There's where you have wiggle room. But you all have had a rich discussion, a good one, I think, going also the formal and informal route. But there's nothing that says you can't make a recommendation, even though you're absolutely correct. The current building code does not address the type of business. That doesn't mean that would be your recommendation on the formal side to include it. Eventually, we're gonna have to look at that. But it may be what Ms. Morales is saying, that the personal look, the unofficial, informal one first, see how much traction you get. a combination of both, but that's what this committee is, and you all have done a lot to it. I can tell you, you've educated the mayor, and you've educated others, so, them all. By
It
simply
worked
sitting
out
down,
the
by
same,
the theater, by simply sitting down with them. So you can do it both ways. He is just wanted me to relay that again, when you're ready, you can sit down, and go as much detail and help. We will have to take it to the review board. And there's where you'll get the first view of how it will be accepted, because it's all businessmen. But even if they don't approve it, it still goes to council. It just goes with non-approval of the review committee.
I think the personal approach it requires a little bit more work, but it makes us different from the rest of the committees. Whereas the other ones might sit and they meet the public touch. I've always learned, I mean, my husband and I have been in ministry for 30-some years, and we gain more from that personal contact, because then we exist. We are not just a theory, we are a practice, you know? So,
No, Bill said something.
You still have a quorum.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Allen.
So then maybe we're thinking about the recommendation being above those 200 spaces, right? Like if we decide to,
Anything over 26.
I mean, over anything 26, sorry.
And it's up to you.
Mhm.
It's up to you.
It just seems like
He's just giving you
His recommendation.
his recommendation, and again, we wouldn't want, you all should feel free to express your recommendation, even to the point the technical review committee doesn't approve your proposal. It still will go to council, and it will go with three things. The planning and zoning, and you met with Linares, which is the building, and he's the main person, but eventually, now we need to bring you Nathan Bratton, the city planner. Because then he has to also say it's within the zoning as well, and it won't affect zoning and planning. Even if he also says we don't agree, then your third recommendation is me. Your liaison, that they could both say no, and I could say yes, and ultimately the council would decide. Or all three of us might say yes.
And I think that's a better deal there, is to go into the council with 3 yeses. And I think really paying attention to what Mr. Linares is saying is critical, because he's dealing face to face with these businesses all the time. He knows how they feel, he knows what they're gonna respond, he knows what their concern's gonna be. So for us to go against it, even though I know we have the right and the liberty to, is probably not a good idea. I think that we need to have that backing, so to speak, or that stamp of approval, and going in with those 3 yeses, because then we're, I think, increasing the chances if this won't go through, making it more difficult for ourselves when he's already spent a lot of time with us, telling us what he's a professional in. It's what he does every day. So I think listening to him, even though we have a freedom not to, is probably the wisest thing for us.
And who knows, maybe in the future that if we get the yeses and it's approved, then it will start trickling down to the new businesses, because they see like, oh, hey, all these businesses.
And we still have that informal freedom to approach those new businesses or the smaller businesses. You know, we can still go and talk with them and negotiate possibly, I mean, so.
yeah.
No, I think that anytime that you try to change a very old established ordinance rule, regulation, it's gonna be met with the first reaction is say no. Because people don't like change, so the first response is gonna be no. But you know, you're talking about an ordinance that's 25, 30 years old. People need to understand that things have changed,
Yeah.
and I think that possibly that's the venue that we need to undertake. And again, taking into account that we understand their perspective, they you know, the business world looks at it from a perspective of you're asking me to give up one or several of my parking spaces for
They think
these
it's
for accessible parking when they may never use them in the entire day, and so that may discourage a regular client from just turning around and going somewhere else instead because my parking space, my parking lot's full. And so we're sensitive. I think we need to be sensitive to their concerns, and they are legitimate concerns, and so I think that's something we need to take into account.
Mr. Chair, and rightly so, what you're saying, on your informal also, and not just a business, but you can still make a recommendation to council about making changes, and it's just a recommendation to get them thinking. They also need to be educated, and they listen to you when you've gone to council in the past. One of the things, and based on this committee, but I brought it up to the city manager, is the city is undergoing a review. Are we in compliance with changing the doors, the doorknobs, the switches?
Yeah.
So we're assessing that, and that was because of you.
Yeah.
That we're doing it, and this department, we're doing construction, so and we have people with special needs that are working with us, and we realize that even though we thought we were accessible,
You're not.
we're not.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it can just be a friendly recommendation,
Yeah.
and that's part of the process too, to council.
Yeah.
They need to know.
Yeah, we need to be progressive.
Yeah. Plant those seeds.
Yeah, we need to be progressive. We might not be able to accomplish and pave the whole way, but
Mhm.
we might be able to get some construction going.
Yeah.
Do the gravel at least. Outline the sidewalk.
That's right. And you'd be surprised.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and put an email together. I'll send you a copy, Dr. Gonzalez. See who, all my super duper volunteers here that want to be part of that committee.
Okay. And then the last thing is we need to bring in the city planner. So you all let me know, do you want me at the next meeting, or you want to put the committee to start working on it and bring him in? He'll be a test. He's the zoning and planning, so.
Yeah, and
But
Mr.
he also.
Gonzalez said he's the one who has like a colorful personality, right? No?
He has a very colorful personality.
So then would it be best to first pick his brain and then have him back again for a second, or
No.
just have him
Be
like,
proactive.
this is what we want?
Just sit down and talk to him. If he's got a colorful personality, chances are he's easy. He's if you just find the right color, you can change things.
No, again, his job is to make sure that we comply with
Yeah.
planning and zoning issues. Again, doesn't mean they can't be changed.
We might be educated.
See, he needs education.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of things, and there's always a middle ground for things, and there's always opportunity for growth, and we are not perpetual. And neither is our knowledge.
Well, right now we are accessible.
Right now we are not.
Yeah, right now we're perpetual.
I'm gonna tell my husband I'm perpetual.
So for item 7, I'll send 5. I'll send something out, okay, and we get a number of dates that we could possibly meet. Next item is item 6. Has to do with any announcements that you all may have. Married.
Well, I do have an announcement. I'm super excited to announce that the what is it called, Parks and Rec on where the Heinz building is at.
Mm-hmm.
I just met over the phone with Anita Stanley, and we're going to be doing some work experiences there.
Oh.
And so that's really good. Honda also offered an opportunity. We're doing a lot of work experiences with young people and older people who want to learn, gain skills. And Honda actually, I went over to, I had a placement, and I spoke to Ms. Castañeda from Honda, and I told her, I said, this is what I have. I was just wondering, within 15 minutes, I was hugging her. I was so excited. Because she said, Ceci, just bring the person over. We'll work with them here. And I don't usually get that reception. But I was like, that's one of those that I just want to have a bill that goes, cling, cling, you know, just one over for our people, you know. So it's really, really good. And that's what I talk about when I talk about having a committee come in and say, hey, we're just here just to let you know that you guys are doing a great job. You know, you're changing the community. And I can say that, but I'm just sassy. But you have a few people who show up from the mayor's committee and say, you know what, I heard through the grapevine that this is what you're doing. Congratulations for being inclusive. Even with you have an inclusive certificate that stands on the wall and reminds everyone every day that you are making a difference. That's what happens when you bring minds, different minds.
So you say.
I can make the certificates.
So you say. No, thank you for your work.
Mr. Chair, the only other thing, you all in the previous meeting acted to wait for the budget process to voice your concern on the fees for the metro. Do you want to proceed? You did decide that at the previous meeting, the city is in the final stage of the budget process for the next fiscal year. Do you want to submit something as you decided at the previous meeting? To reassess the
Yes, I
increase
think
of the
we should.
fees?
Oh yes, so now it's time. You're saying that now
Now
we
it's
can.
time.
Okay,
Well,
yes.
Can I add something? I heard through a good source that the Metro plans to give another price hike on the fares. I don't know if
I'm
it's.
not sure.
Well, like I said, somebody told me, and this person told me that when it was happening the first time, and that's why I went to the meeting last year. And the same person now tells me, hey, Roberto, they're planning to get another price hike this year. So I think we should have some kind of action to prevent that.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure they're gonna propose another one, but I think I need to look at the proposal from last year because
Yeah.
it may have been progressive. I don't remember that.
Okay.
So I'll bring that up.
Okay.
But you all took action at a previous meeting for me to let you know when the budget process, which is now, to express
Yeah.
concern about the rate increase.
So
Now,
how
we were
how do we, what's your recommendation as to how we express it? Is that through,
we
is
could
that in
submit
writing or is that
in writing, but yes, you should go up to council.
I think we should go to a meeting of the city council and propose. We should get together and join with people who use the service like me and other persons and present our case.
I think we had sent out an email regarding a city that was similar in demographics as ours, and what they were doing to address the I guess freezing the fees or whatever it was. And if I recall, I can forward that over again. My daughter was here at that time, and she said, okay, this city and this city are comparable in the way they do things. Because if we continue doing that, we're really diminishing the opportunity for people to continue using the public system. Because I have individuals that have been hired from South Laredo, and they're working North Laredo, and that's the only mode of transportation. And they're working, mind you, few hours because that's what they can work. So if they go work and they have to give away one of the hours and they're only working 3 or 4, you just diminish their opportunity for socialization, for work experiences, for every single aspect of their lives. You just shut them down. And
I remember the mayor had made a comment one of the times that he came when this had just occurred, and he had said that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes my memory fails me, but that he had said it would be better for us to approach it from a waiver standpoint. So in other words, approach them and say, could the city provide a waiver for these new increased fees, not necessarily decrease them, because he was saying that probably not gonna happen, because they're going towards salaries and all kinds of other stuff. But he said maybe a proposal for a waiver for individuals with disabilities, or maybe a cutoff income level or something where those that can't afford those increased fees could get a waiver. And that he mentioned that would be
Selective.
a lot easier than trying to bring down the whole law increase.
And more or less what your daughter shared, that's what they're doing, either it's
Yes.
a waiver or
I
a
think it's in
discount.
Lubbock or something like that.
I think that would be the good recommendation.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing too that I would like to look at, because at least for our individuals that are enrolled with VR, in other cities and states, the bus system works with VR, and we're able to purchase those tickets for our customers, but El Metro won't take a purchase order.
Right.
And so maybe we could look at that, because
That might
we
alleviate.
could purchase them, whether monthly bus passes, daily bus tickets.
Are those vouchers
we
just for
can
that
purchase them, but
individual?
they won't do
Special
it.
needs.
But is that for individuals if they are going for a job issue?
Seeking employment,
Okay.
if they're going to training, if they're going to school, any service that they're getting from
It
us that they need
facilitates
to
the
get around.
process for them to be able to be gainfully employed.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, you're right, it's in the minutes, and he did say that, as a recommendation. And so these things could be a recommendation,
Okay.
instead of don't increase or decrease, do the waiver, base it on income, and accept purchase orders. And two things can be done. One, you can submit that already as the Blue Committee concern to the current manager. Then also, this will go under how to do it, yes, in writing, so there's something documented. But then, under the mayor's item, there would be an item that he would bring you up to make the presentation that you're, but yes, I would look at I would consider his recommendation of making it a positive, with a waiver. And I thought they already had certain income levels for discounts, but if not, yeah, you use it and then
I don't think
accept, you
No,
know.
because right now for El Metro Lift, it's only based on, you have to have a disability, like through the doctor, he needs to
to
sign.
Oh, yeah.
use a lift,
To use
but
El Lift.
nothing to do with the fees.
No.
Yeah, they have to do with, well, I mean, I think that's an excellent,
Like it's still lower, but I'm pretty sure it's still increased with.
Well, they have three fares. It's 175 for the first 7 miles,
Oh,
7
that's
miles?
the changes.
and after 7, it's 7 to 14, it's 250, and 14 and up is 350.
But are you talking about El Metro or El Lift?
A lift.
El Lift.
I don't use the metro,
Okay, yeah.
the bus, or I just do the
So-
lift.
So
the-
maybe
the
that's where
prices
the
you-
waiver could be with a lift, but then they said themselves, remember when we went, that a lift is not just for individuals with disabilities.
Well, it is, because they ask you for doctor's,
Right, but I think they were saying that it's also for people who have standing medical appointments, not necessarily with a disability.
no, they use only
So they're
disabled.
kind of
As far as I know, it's only for the people who are disabled.
Maybe
Well,
people
we
who
need
have
to
medical
clarify
conditions.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Or I think, no, but I think, maybe we're confusing ourselves. Because I think what I remember is that a lot of people were using it for their medical needs, and supposedly it wasn't made for that.
because they even send you a letter from the ADA. When I get a letter from the Metro, they send me also from the ADA. And another thing is when I applied for Metro, they give you an application for the doctor to sign that you're disabled. And that's been since I started.
So
the
the
service.
Metro, you get a discount
Yes, through the regular metro you get a discount,
Mm-hmm.
and then through the lift services, you're allowed to use the service
Yeah.
for lift services.
So individuals with
So-
disabilities get a discount for a metro?
Yes. They
Yeah.
get a discount, but I'm pretty sure it still went up, right? Like with all
It
the
went up.
fees, it still
Yeah.
went.
I haven't used it lately, but
I think
So
it
what
would
kind
used to
of,
be
what kind of
75
discount do you
cents.
get? If you use it?
if I used a regular bus before this price hike, I was paying a quarter to go, let's say from my house to Target. I paid a quarter using the metro bus, the regular bus.
But then people switch to the lift if they have if you have to go to get to work at 8, like your job is from 8 to 5, like no excuses, then they
Standing meetings,
then
there's
standing
pickups.
meetings
Yeah, like today the metro lift dropped me here, and when I'm
on
ready,
time
yeah.
and everything.
So, and
So-
I was gonna say something else. This past week, I had a meeting with the mayor, and I told him about this metro lift proposal that I was told that it might raise the price, and he told me he doubts it very seriously because this year, the election year, he doesn't think that it's that's what he said. Because election year, and that he thinks that it would be foolish for the council members to agree with that because of, it's gonna affect their voting.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll go back and look at the proposal that was accepted for this year. It may have been progressive.
Okay.
So year one, some like year two, I'll look at that. But also, I'll ask if there's a proposal because we're this year, the budget is being handled differently. It will be coming up for council for approval. We have to have an accepted, approved budget by council before October 1, before the fiscal year starts.
So does the city council have designated hearing, budget
Yes.
hearing,
Yes, there will
public
be,
hearings? Or
yes,
So that would be the time to bring it up.
Yes.
that will be the time to bring it up.
Okay.
And as soon as we have the dates, we'll let you know.
Okay.
I have another announcement.
I'm
Want
gonna
to share?
have to leave.
Um,
I'm gonna have to leave, but I
No,
know.
you can't, you're committed.
I'm not.
We're done, so yeah, you can leave.
Okay, thank you so
So
much.
I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn then.
No, can I
Yes,
say?
absolutely.
Yes.
you may.
The announcements can always be.
Yes, I can, this past Saturday, we have a second meeting, hopefully to bring the NFB to Laredo. One of the discussion was, the White Cane Awareness Day, and we're working on it. We have 3 proposed dates. And, I sent an email to the president of the National Federation of the Blind of Texas, Ms. Crosby, and I told her the dates that are proposed for the White Cane Awareness Day. And I asked her to give me a date as to when she plans to come to Laredo, and perhaps that will make it easier for us to decide when we can have that date. And I also, at my meeting where I had with the mayor, the only thing he wants to know is when we're gonna have the walk and where, and he's ready to proclaim that day as a White Cane Awareness Day.
Nice.
Yeah, so.
Well, thank you, Mr. Delgado. And one last thing on the LPA agenda.
Yeah. So, that's, I think that's really good news.
Yes.
That is very
It is
good,
very
thank you.
And thank you for always making your presence known to us. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless.
Congratulations.
Bye, Ceci, take care.
I sure will.
Okay, so do I hear someone wants to adjourn?
Yes, I will.
Yes.
No, we're good.
All right.
Motion second.